Well, I'd like to once again welcome everyone. I think we're going to give it just one more minute. We did have a number of participants sign up today for our program, and we have 30 before. We're going to make sure that everyone is muted so that our presenters can have, we can all focus on our presenters today. So as some of you might be able to see, this program will be recorded and then it'll be available. The library and the museum will work together to make sure that it is available for any library patron or museum member who would like to see it in the future. And so more information about that will be coming out in an email. So definitely look for that. Let's see here. I am going to make sure that everyone is muted, and I think we can get started. What do you say, John and Laura?
Okay.
Okay. So once again, my name is Laura, and I am the director of the Dunlap Public Library. You'll hear later on in the presentation why the library and the museum are combining forces. But for now, I want to say welcome very much to our representatives from the museum. And thank you, all of you, for being here today for us to learn more about the museum. I'm going to turn it over to John Amdahl.
Hi there. I'm John Amdahl. I'm on the board for the Wheels of Time Museum, and I and Jim Baldwin will be making the presentation. We have a couple of our volunteers online here. Dave Giffen, who's you're going to see his photo along the way, and Ron Anderson, you're going to see his photo along the way. Fred Rowland, who's our treasurer, is on, I see. And then Laura Vancho, very grateful for her. She's our executive director, and she is one that really made this possible. The square on your thing that says Wheels of Time Marseille is our secretary and a person that really helps us with special events and a number of the promotions that we do for Wheels of Time, and she's going to be driving and sharing the slides as we go along the way. So Marseille, we're probably ready to go ahead and get started on that then. So Wheels of Time Museum got established in the late 70s, and it was basically a couple of guys who had too many cars, and their wives had this unreasonable demand of being able to park their cars in the garage during the wintertime. And the solution was to build a building to store some cars. And they decided to be a little more ambitious than that. And so the building that you see off to the left that has the clock up there in the gable is the original building that was built in the late 1970s. And this building was built with the idea that it could be stored cars as well as be a museum. And in this photograph now, we've gone around to the back of the complex. And so that building that you saw initially is up there. It's labeled as building number 1, the main building. And that building opened then as a museum in 1983. The second building we built is one that's labeled actually as number 3. It's the farm building. And that building is behind the museum. And then the third, that was built in 1985. The third building that we built was the firehouse, which is labeled as building number 2 on this graphic. It was built in 1989. It's a 2-story building and is housing fire engines as well as cars, and the upstairs mezzanine has got displays. If you notice, there's a connection between the main building and the firehouse so that you can stay indoors between those 2 buildings, and you can serviced by an elevator so that you can get up to the second floor if needed. The next shot, I think, is a shot of the front of the firehouse. No, the next one is going to be I'm sorry, we're going to do, I'm out of sync. We're going to show a video next, and Mercedes is going to give you a quick overview of the entire complex, and we're going to be able to see the museum here in about a 1.5-minute video. Okay, so you saw the overview. We're now going to take a walk around the museum, and you're going to get to see some of the images you just saw a little bit closer up front as we do that. I think the first shot that we're going to see is the firehouse that is, maybe the farm building actually is going to be first. The farm building is first. There's a water tower that's a water pump that's in front of that that's driven by a windmill, and that building houses our agricultural equipment. The next building is the firehouse. And a couple things to point out in this picture. One of the quizzes that I always give when I'm giving a tour out there is, why does the firehouse, every firehouse, have these tall towers? And the answer, of course, is to dry the fire hoses. And so there's a rack in there where your fire hoses are draped up, pulled up to the ceiling so that the fire hoses can drain out indoors out of the weather before putting back on the fire truck to make sure they don't mold. And I like to point out the statue in the lower left corner is R.G. Letourneau, who of course is the person that invented the steel house that we're going to see coming up here a little bit, better known for all of his earth moving equipment that he used during the course of the years. The next building we built was the Ford building. The front half of this is the Ford V8 display area that changes every month when the museum is open. Unfortunately, we'll talk about this later, the museum is not open now, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. And in the back of this building is our work area where we do the refurbishment and improvements to the artifacts of the museum. The next shot is the steel house that was put in just a few years ago. This steel house was built in 1937. It was used at the R.G. Letourneau facility that eventually became Komatsu. And if you remember those brick buildings that were along Adams Street, when they were torn down, this building was part of that complex and was rescued, and we were able to receive it as a donation. There's dozens of these buildings actually, but dozens of these homes around town. The distinctive thing about these homes are the windows that are in the corner. You could never do that with a wooden construction. This shows that those windows in the corner with that steel beam there allows for large wall spaces. So although this building is 24 by 24, it is deceptively large. And you're in there because you do have enough room for a sofa, you have enough room for a bed. It does give the appearance of doing that. Marcia Johnson, one of our volunteers, operations manager, lovingly restored this back to the period. Every single piece of furniture and artifact in here is from the period to be just like you walked into the steel house in 1937, including the appliances. And the floor actually is the original floor that we were able to rescue. It's just an amazing artifact at a period restoration for a point in time that the R.G. Letourneau was building these steel houses. Moving on, this is one of the other buildings that we have is a building we call affectionately Death Valley. That building was back at the back of the complex, and it was where things went to die. We're going to show you an inside shot of that here in a little bit. But that building's been torn down, and that earth area in front there is now where we've got a building going up. It'll be a 2-story display building. And we built a smaller little building back there, which we appropriately call Happy Valley, which has our lawn equipment and other things that we need for maintenance around the facility. In a few minutes, Jim's going to talk about the new display building that's in the process of being built right now. So moving on here, we have a buggy that one of our founders, Gary Bragg, actually had as a child from his farm. It's been restored as a doctor's carriage. We have a horse that is amazing that is tied into that. And here is a car that's actually owned by Jim Baldwin, who's going to be speaking after me. And it's just a good place to talk about the fact that Wheels of Time Museum is a hands-on display museum. In this case, you can actually get in the car, get your picture taken. You can get in the rumble seat and back if you like. Some of the cars you cannot touch, but most of the artifacts you can touch. And here's our lineup. We're going to show you now several shots of cars. Notice that there are mannequins in period dress along the way there. This is a car we're especially proud of, the Peoria Glide. It's one of only a couple dozen in the entire country, and this one is by far and away the one that's in the best condition. The museum was fortunate in being able to acquire this last year. Will now be permanently part of our display. Again, the lovingly restored cars. You can see the mannequins in period dress there. Everything from the original automobiles back in the early 1900s to the 1930s, and we do have a few that are actually a little bit later than that. The car on the left is this car right here, which is one of the original Jumer's Hotel limousine. It's a Rolls Royce that was used during that period of time there. You're going to see that balcony behind there. We're going to go up there and look at some of the things that are there. Every car, if you notice these plaques that are out front, has a descriptor of who owns the cars. Most of the cars are actually not owned by the museum. They're on loan from people, and most of the cars are lovingly restored and in absolute pristine condition. This is one of my favorites, the Accord. As you see the beautiful exhaust coming out the side there, and it just looks very, very futuristic. Hard to believe that it's so old. Again, some other cars that we have lined up here. We do have the fencing for these cars to do that. We're now over in the firehouse, and we're up the mezzanine of the firehouse looking down to some of the newer cars that we have there. Newer, these are from the 1960s and 70s. But the car that's at the far right, the black Mercedes, is another Jumer's limousine that we've been able to be fortunate to have. Amazing car. It's one of the early stretch limousine things. In this case, it has an extra door in it, as opposed to some of the really large stretch ones that we have right now. So you have this opportunity to look down. Here's a shot in the Ford building. And this display, when we're open, changes every month. The Ford V8 Club members bring their personal cars in to have on display for a month, and there's usually somebody from the Ford V8 Club that can give you the whole story of what's involved there. You see Marcia standing back there at the door towards the left. You go through that door, and you get back into the workspace in the Ford Museum, where we do our restoration types of work. Back to the firehouse. This is one of the Jeeps that Jim will talk about in a few minutes that's going to end up in the new display building. And behind that is a 48 Packard that Gary Bragg, one of our founders, actually drove every year for many, many years as his summer driving car. Moving ahead here, we've got the firehouse has 4 spectacular fire engines. The first one is the 1855 fire pumper. Just maybe spend a moment here and explain how it actually works. If you look at the wooden bars that are going front to back, there's 2 of them. And what you'd have is several people lined up along the side of the fire pump. They would be grabbing that bar and pulling that bar down and pulling it back up again. That action would cause the fire pump to be able to pump water. And then the wooden thing in the center is where the pump's located at. You see the hose coming out the back end, and there'll be a line of people on each side of this fire pumper with human power to pump the water to be able to put out the fire. The next shot shows a smaller fire engine that was used in Dunlap, actually. This one has only 1 set of bars on each side, so they would have fewer people to operate it, and obviously less water than what it could before. And then we have 2 motorized fire engines, again, hands-on displays. The kids can get into these fire engines. They can sound the siren. They have great fun doing that. These 2 fire engines are runnable, and they are part of our wonderful display of memorabilia from that time. This is our pride and joy, the Aaron's Fox fire engine. It was used by the Peoria Fire Department in the 1930s. We actually have a couple of pictures on the wall with it at a fire being used. And as you can see, it was in very, very sad shape. This picture is inside of that Death Valley building that I talked about before that is no longer there. And it spent decades here deteriorating in very, very sad shape. The block and the pump actually were cracked, and we had to do major restoration all the way through it. With partnership with some of the fighter groups in the area, we were able to restore it. And I think the next shot's going to show the Aaron's Fox in downtown Peoria as it's been restored. One of the trivias on the Aaron's Fox is that big chrome ball that's up at the top of the pump. That is to smooth out the pulsations from the pump. The pistons would pump and give you spurts of water. It would potentially knock the firemen over from the spurts of the water, and that ball up there is an accumulator that smooths out those pumping action and gives a steady flow for the fire engine people. It's an open fire engine and so forth. Probably our most famous artifact is the 886, the Rock Island rocket that spent many years down in Detweiler Park. You may, a little trivia you may not know is that it was moved up the hill from Detweiler Park to Wheels of Time when Route 6 was under construction before it got paved. We got special permission to move it up, and it's been here ever since. It's amazing how many people drive by and know about the Rock Island rocket, but have never visited the museum. So we're continuing to try to get the word out to let people know what's happening there. Behind the Rock Island rocket, we've got this combo car in orange, and then the green is a caboose, both of which are open. You can climb up into those and be able to see that. And then we have the two cars that used to be at Vanakins. And here's a wonderful shot. Here are the two cars from Vanakins. And this couple, this picture was taken just recently. They're actually, the cars are closed to the public, but we made special permission to let them stand up there and get their picture taken, because 30 years ago, they did their wedding reception dinner in this car. And for their 30th wedding anniversary, wanted to get their picture taken with the car in its new location, and we made special arrangements to do that. Our volunteers are working like crazy. Here's Dave working on the windows as we are getting things ready to go back together again. Actually, this looks like maybe a door. And here's the other car, which was the TP&W executive car that they used for their executive transport. It's wonderfully preserved. We'll have it open to the public in the near future when restoration and, of course, the current pandemic allows. So let's go upstairs now in the main building. And perhaps one of the displays that gets some of the best wows from the kids when they come through there are typewriters. Believe it or not, most kids don't know what typewriters are. And so they get a chance to actually use the typewriters. Every one of these are workable. We let the kids touch them. They can type out a message. They are, again, hands-on display opportunities. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to connect kids with how we used to do things before all these keyboards and touchpads and everything that we have these days. This is the clock room. John Parks was the other founder, and he was really into clocks. He had a clock shop in Dunlap for many years. And this actually is somewhat reduced from what it used to be. Virtually every single one of these clocks work. It's quite a interesting sounds to hear all these cuckoo clocks going off, and we have a chance to be able to enjoy some of this past and all the work that John did in keeping these clocks lovingly going and prepared. Going upstairs, these are Gary Bragg's toys. These trains operate. There's, again, push button. There's an opportunity to push a button. The trains will go around the tracks. We got a rector set off to the right there that's got a little thing that goes around. You can see the blurriness there as the airplane's moving there, going around the pedestal. We have bicycles. Peoria, of course, was a very, very famous bicycle destination. A bicycle manufacturing location. And we have a number of the Peoria bicycles upstairs in the firehouse that you can see. And then also upstairs in the firehouse, we have, upstairs in the main area, we have other hands-on displays. This is Grandma's Kitchen, which has the utensils and the artifacts and the appliances that were used at that time. There's actually a pump that recirculates water, so you can pump water as you might have way back when you didn't have running water. Every one of these appliances and things can be touched and handled and be able to take a look at it, which of course presents a challenge of being able to open. This is the tool area with a number of tools that are very different than what tools look like today, very specially designed, of course, all hand tools, no electric tools at all in here, the hand-driven grinders and whatnot. So we have some very significant artifacts. We have both a Holt and a Best tractor. This is a Best tractor, very early, gasoline powered. we have a Holt tractor we'll be showing you here in a little while. This, of course, is significant because Holt and Best merged to form Caterpillar in 1925. And so we're very, very proud of being able to have both a Holt and a Best tractor as part of our collection. This is one of the very early Caterpillar tractors that was actually used in East Peoria to haul manufactured product around the factory. It has a rubber tread on it to be able to keep from damaging any of the concrete when it was being used. That's Paul Reisdorf, one of our other volunteers on that tractor. And here's Dave and Ron next to the Laterno scraper, which is a model that's upstairs in the firehouse. And the scraper is one of the products that Laterno made for many years. He, of course, was also the people that made the steel house that we saw earlier. Upstairs, we've got a Ag Lab display. These are our research tools that were used for the Ag Lab. In the center is a centrifuge. There's a scale in the back. There's a hands-on area that you can actually do a little squeezing of a cork and be able to put a cork into a bottle if you like. The next shot is a WMBD studio, which when they upgraded it, we were able to get the old studio, and we've got recordings that you can play, so you can punch buttons and hear the recordings. There's a place to sit down. This is a nice midway through point where you can do that. And this is another display that you can punch buttons and select and play these LP records. This works, and it is able to hear the sounds from yesteryear. This is our music room. Many of the musical instruments in there you can play. You can go up there and play the xylophone if you like. There's opportunities to engage then with the piano and the other instruments as well. We have a fun displays. This is the barbershop quartet. If you look closely, you might recognize some of the faces as being caricatures of some of our past presidents, and their mouths move and they do a little bit of singing for you. It's great fun. We've got a number of other interactive kinds of displays like this throughout the museum. Our most recent acquisition has been these three rides that used to be out front of supermarkets and the like. And so you dropped your nickel in and you were able to have a little ride there as the thing moved back and forth. And these all operate, again, very hands-on, but we will have these back in operation and open. These were acquired this last winter, so we haven't had the opportunity yet for the public to see them, but we wanted to show you what we're going to have for coming attractions when we do open up again. And we have some nice motion displays. This is a little circus demo there with a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round, and they all operate. And there's a little train that goes around the outside, and so you can press the button and you see the parade going around the circus area. And we have this nice little ball motion machine. The balls are cranked up to the top, and then they run through the tracks and ring the bells and proceed back to the beginning to circulate again. Great fun to be able to watch this, to be able to do that. There's a model of the Columbia, which is, of course, is that tragedy of that steamboat that sunk in 1918 here in Peoria, probably the largest accident on the river that happened here in the Peoria area. This model tells the story of the background on that. We have a little display of a garage area with cutaway engines, diagrams of engines, and all the servicing things that were used way back when to be able to do that. We have an overhead lathe system where the pulleys are up overhead and they drive the lathes and the drill press and the other appliances. Basically a machine shop out of the 1920s kind of a setting, showing what happened before we really got electric motors to power each of the equipment independently. And we have toys. These are, you're going to see a few collections here of our toys. These are the soldiers that we have. These are model airplanes that are scattered around there. And we have a wonderful doll collection with a little girl standing next to it, enjoying the opportunity to be with the dolls. And I think at that point, we're going to turn it over to Jim. And Jim's going to give you oh no, at this point, we're going to talk about festivals. I'm sorry, I'm not reading my script. we're gonna talk about the festivals and the things that are happening throughout the year, starting with the Fall Festival. And at the Fall Festival, we do things including blacksmithing, where we will be able to demonstrate how parts used to get made using the anvil, of course, over here on the blacksmith. And then we have steam engines, to have 2 or 3 shots here of steam engines. These are operating steam engines. These are demonstrations of the tools. And again, back to the steam engines with the small steam engines on the table, and behind there is a larger steam engine that's operating. And on our Fellow Festival, we do give rides on the Aaron Fox. So here's some people that are getting up there in the Aaron Fox and getting a chance to get a ride around the area. You see the big smiles on the kids as they're doing that. Paul Reisdorf is way over on the right. He's the driver for the Aaron Fox usually. And we run a short little loop around the area. Halloween is always a fun time. Here are the kids coming for trick-or-treating at Halloween. We have another shot here of the wonderful dressing and face painting that have taken place there for Halloween as the kids are coming. And then we do car shows, and throughout the year there'll be 2 or 3 car shows. They're both the older cars that you can see right here, and then we also have the new stuff. So on the left is the car from Autonomous Stuff, which is the company in Morton that is developing the self-drive car controls, sensors, logistics. And this car is equipped with all the autonomous car stuff. And we were able to do some demonstrations for what's going to be coming down the road here for us on autonomy. And here's some little more modern cars that we've got on display for our car show. And finally, we have a wonderful partnership with PAWS that allows us to use our facility with them for training of dogs. One of the things that you have to do with service dogs is make sure they're okay in public spaces. And so this is a wonderful place for the dogs to get out of their normal comfort environment and demonstrate that they're able to handle very unusual situations and be able to behave properly and really be being the right kind of service dog that they're supposed to be. And we have obviously a picture taken before the current pandemic with the band playing out here. Wonderful opportunity to use our facilities for being able to share it with others like this. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Jim. Sorry that I misspoke earlier. And Jim's going to share with you about the new exhibit building and what our future plans for the museum are, and a little bit of an update on the current pandemic. So Jim?
Good. 3 years ago, when we began looking at being a not-for-profit, the 2017 area, we also were looking at the point that we really were out of space. We have many things that were crowded. We have, I think, 8 or 9 pieces of full CAD equipment. And you probably saw only a couple of them, and they're stuffed in farm building and corners and so on, and engines and everything. So we knew we were out of space. We had displays that we couldn't, or items that we couldn't display. Our buildings have a lot of nooks and crannies, and you can't believe the things that we come out and that were stored many years ago and have never been displayed. So when we became a not-for-profit and had an opportunity to have a capital campaign, about a year ago, we launched a capital campaign, and in about 8 or 9 months, we were able to generate enough capital to build a new building, which will house a lot of things. The building is under construction. In fact, I was just there today, and now there is a metal roof on the building. And it'll be open when we open in May. This is one of the projects that goes along with the building. And in order to get the building placed on the site, the air conditioning and air handling systems, we're going to have to move the building 4 or 5 feet closer to the Ford building, and which made it very difficult to get between the buildings. So the air conditioning systems are going to be put on this particular car that's been built by our volunteers, and that will be in back of the building, and it'll give us at least 5 more feet of space between the buildings. So anyway, these are the things that happen. The things that are going to be in the building is probably one of the most interesting one is going to be the Aaron's Fox. The Aaron's Fox it's now stored in the shop, and you have to really crane your neck to even see it. And it will have a prominent space in the new exhibit building. The other items that are going to be in the exhibit building is a grasshopper. This is a plane that was used in World War II and the Korean War for reconnaissance. And the plane will be hung from the ceiling, just like you see it here. And we will have a lot of military footage showing the plane in operation in both wars, doing this job as reconnaissance. And I've seen the items, and they're really, or the videos, and they're really interesting. Also, with the military exhibit, there will be shots of, these two of these 3 units will be that's a Mutt, a military vehicle that was designed by Ford and then built by Willys, and then a Jeep that was also, and this Jeep is the only Jeep for 1 year that was built by Ford, and then it went to Willys also. So anyway, a lot of military paraphernalia, medals, uniforms, and et cetera. So the military exhibit is something that we've had in nooks and crannies, but it's really going to have a dominant display area. The next item that will be used, the new building will be used for, is the Caterpillar machines. We're going to bring them all together. You'll see everything starting with the Best and the Holt, and the D2 and the D4 and the D6 and so on, and all in the building in sequence, so that you can get some idea of the size that the builder and the size of the machines and how they changed over the years. Plus the fact that we have all kinds of Caterpillar artifacts, toys, and so on, and those all will be in the building along with the Cat machines. The other areas that the new exhibit building will provide is some new exhibits. First of all, we have an arrangement now with the Peoria Historical Society, and they will have a revolving exhibit in the new building, and it will be changed periodically to the artifacts, because keep in mind the museum only has, they have the Historical Society has an awful lot of artifacts, but they only have 2 houses to show them in, and they have the rest of it in storage. And so this will give them a possibility to show some of the artifacts that they have. We also have some new displays that were in the mill. We don't exactly sure how we're going to do it, but one of them is a textiles display where we have an operating loom to make rugs, a spinning wheel, and some other equipment that is related to the textile industry that was located in this area. One of the biggest plant was in Lakin. Another possibility is a a Christmas ornament display, ones that go back to people that used to put tinsel on their tree and candles and so on. And so we were planning to have some kind of a Christmas display or throughout the in the new building. Another one is the new building is going to give us room to do other things. And one of the things is that we mentioned that we periodically have had a blacksmith shop in the farm building. Well, we now will have a permanent blacksmith shop in the farm building. And so we'll have that space. One of the other things that that is going to happen is many of you probably remember the statue that was on the left was in Sheridan Village. It was right at the entrance to Bergner's. And that was given to us by the developer that was redeveloping Sheridan Village. And they had no place to put it. And so they gave it to us. And the current idea is we photoshopped it in front of the farm building, but it will be on display. And as you remember, that statue was called the family tradition statue. It was a mother, father, and child. So it's kind of exciting. We're excited about all the things that are happening with the old museum and the new museum. And the only problem is it's not open. And we can't, you probably saw in the demonstrations and so on, all the hands-on displays. And the volunteers have done a really great job in converting many of the hands-on displays to that where you had to push a button to foot operated to turn it on. But many of them we couldn't. And so we'll have to rope those off. And then some of them we've actually you just pass by and it turns on by itself. But we still had to do a whole lot of sanitation things. The buttons had to be cleaned, the railings and so on. And there is just no way that we can probably be open with the rules on the Restore Illinois until such time that the infection rate becomes probably down to that 1%. And we feel safe, the board feels safe that we can, all our volunteers and all of the guests are going to be safe and not have to worry. But we will open. We hopefully, maybe we can open still yet this year. We could probably, if we make a call, we can open within probably a week or so with a head start. But anyway, and hopefully we certainly will be open next year. So the closure is really temporary. We mentioned the fact that we're going to have the memberships, and one of the ideas is that people have bought memberships and for 2020, and the board has already made a decision that all memberships either already purchased or purchased in the future for 2020 will be good in 2021. So that's kind of where we are. We wish we were open, but and feel free to drive by. I drive by every day, but to see where we're going on the new building, and the grounds are being kept pristine. by the volunteers. And speaking of volunteers, I just can't say more. We only have 3 part-time employees, and everything else is done by a group of volunteers. And I would suggest that if anybody has time on their hands and want to be a volunteer at the Wheels of Time, if you have these kinds of capabilities, or you're a carpenter or a painter, electrician, do a lot of maintenance, you want to be a guide or a receptionist, we probably have things for you to do. And everybody is welcome. And you can see here all the volunteers having projects of painting and repairing and so on. So thank you for the volunteers. Thank you. The staff thanks you for participating with the Dunlap Library. And I'll turn it back over to Laura for the library.
Thank you so much, Jim. Yes, as was mentioned earlier, the Dunlap Public Library has partnered with the Wheels of Time Museum. Starting this year, we have decided to do some dedicated story times at the museum. So earlier, library staff and library volunteers went to the museum and filmed specific story times that partner some really cute books, children's books, with the items that are already in the museum to highlight those. For example, we've already actually launched some story times that were set in the tool area and the grandma's kitchen area, and you already saw those photographs. And some that we have coming up are all about typewriters, which, as it was mentioned, kids these days are just fascinated with, and we'll also have ones dedicated to fire trucks in the future. So those story times are virtual, of course. They are launched on the Facebook pages for the museum and the Facebook pages for the library every other Friday morning. If you happen to not have a Facebook account, but you still would like to see these story times, please just email the library or the museum and we'll get you those links. And please do share them around with any young kids that you know. So other collaborations that we have going on this latter part of the summer, not only these Zoom programs that you're attending today, but also one on Saturday, September 5th at 10 a.m. We're having a special lecture just about remembering Route 66. We're having a historian, Leslie Goddard. She's based in Chicago. And she's going to tell us all about the just remembering Route 66, as so many of us already know. That presentation is once again going to be on Zoom. And if you would like to register for that, please just email me. My email address was just put into the chat box, director@dunlaplibrary.org, and I'll send you a link so that you can register for that Zoom event. Another item that we've got, another collaboration that we have is a story stroll, which is a hands-free story time, self-paced story time that will be set up first at the lawn at the library, and then it'll be moved to the museum. That should be set up by the latter part of this week. And so I encourage families to come on by the library and then maybe come by the museum. We're going to change them out, change the stories, and I hope you'll have fun. Just by attending today, you have an opportunity to win a family membership at the museum. We are asking you to complete a survey, and that link will be emailed to you later on. Please do complete the survey. And even if you already have a museum membership, thank you very much. But we do encourage you to give us information and completing the survey. And today's Zoom participants will receive a buy one, get one pass to the museum. So please, in order to acquire that, email info@wheelsatime.org, and a museum staff or volunteer member will follow up with you on that. Once again, thank you very much. The survey link is right there. I don't think you'll be able to click on it, but I'll try to put the link in the chat box right now. So thank you so much for attending. Once again, this event has been recorded so that we can share it around, and folks can come back and watch it in a future date. If anyone has any questions about the museum, about the library, please take the time to type them into the chat box, or if you're able to raise your hand, I'll do my best to unmute you so that you can ask that question. Thank you again to John, Jim, for being our featured speakers, and of course to Laura and Mercedes in the back, behind the scenes, sharing all of the slides. That was a great help today. I know that we have some dedicated museum volunteers attending today via Zoom, so thank you so much for all of the work that you have done. And so if anyone has any questions, please do type them into the chat. Let's see here. Thank you, Colleen, for your kind words. And yes, we are very happy about this collaboration as well. We hope it'll be the start of a larger thing to come. We are considering hosting some in-person story times next summer at the museum. And so we'll see what next spring and summer bring to Illinois.
Laura, I just wanted to mention too that the reason we got involved in the first place was we had talked back in the beginning of the year about collaborating on the children's summer reading program, and that the celebration prize for completing the summer reading program would be a party at the museum. So
yes,
we're doing the best we can in lieu of in-person.
Yes, I think that these virtual presentations are a very good option when we aren't able to meet in person. Yeah. Well, it seems like we have been able to cover all of the information. We don't have any questions that I see today. So if anyone does have a question, please do type it into the chat. I'm going to go ahead